Hi guys, LordKing here again, back with another video. I'm going to be going over the UFC London card and maybe a small sort of review. If you guys want me to do longer ones I can do, or bigger sort of analysis I can do that as well. First things first, I hope all of the American guys who are watching this actually managed to check out the NCAA Wrestling Championships. A lot of upcoming UFC guys you'll probably be seeing there, the likes of Kyle Schneider. He's expressed that he actually wants to be in the UFC, so keep an eye out for those people, because like I said, a lot of people that are currently in the UFC did actually come from the NCAA sort of background. Right, let's go into it. First thing on the card, we had Lena Landsberg defeated Lucy Pudilova. She won by decision, unanimous decision. This was arguable actually. I think Lucy Pudilova actually won. Lena Landsberg also actually stayed at the end, which was relatively odd. We haven't seen that since Joe Lauzon actually said that his opponent won. Lena Landsberg said that Lucy Pudilova won the decision. It was a bloody fight actually. It was quite one of the more explicit sort of women's fights that we do get to see. Second prelim, Brad Scott defeats Scott Askham. This was quite a back and forth sort of, both were trading, both were in the pocket wanting to fight. Brad Scott kind of exposed Scott Askham's legs. He hit him with a few sort of shots. I'm not sure if it was to the knee or wherever it was, but it kind of buckled Scott Askham quite a few times. He couldn't really put too much pressure on his leg. He kind of recovered, then it would happen again and again and again. It was an odd sort of fight, but Brad Scott won by split decision. Next, this is my highlight. I'll come onto the main card a little bit later, obviously, but this probably is maybe my highlight of the card. Mark Giacchesi versus Teemu Packalén. This was the way Mark Giacchesi came out was unbelievable. He always says he's going to put on a show, and he's a very diverse sort of fighter in the way that he fights. His last fight he did a lot of wrestling, so he had decision. This fight he just came out almost like a rocket. The sort of things that you see like in the movies, the sort of fights. If you guys don't know who Raymond Daniels is, I advise you to go take a look. He trains with Tyron Woodley, and he's made probably the #1 point karate sort of person on the planet, and combat karate, like fought Stephen Thompson, all that sort of stuff. And he basically kind of used one of his kicks that Raymond Daniels did in Glory. I'll link this below. I'll link to you Mark Giacchesi's. It was a KO basically. So it was in the first 30 seconds. He pulled off these. He did almost a crazy sort of a spinning double touch kick. He then did I think it was a spinning back kick, and then it was the actual KO was again ridiculous. It was one of the best performances I've seen in a while, especially from him. Next fight, Leon Edwards defeated Vicente Luque. This was a unanimous decision. Leon Edwards pretty much, he did what he kind of had to do. He basically almost grinded him down. Vicente Luque, he just didn't look like he was massively in it towards the end. It started off relatively well. The final round was relatively one-sided. It was a unanimous decision. Timothy Johnson defeating Daniel, I don't want to mispronounce his name, Omielanchuk, I think. That was by a split decision. Again, one judge did give it a 30-27 to Timothy Johnson, but it was a split decision to Timothy Johnson. Again, it was a relatively longish sort of heavyweight fight. As I'm sure you guys know, when heavyweight fights don't end in the first round, sometimes even early second round, they can tend to be a little bit drearing when they kind of long out, if you understand. Then we had Francimar Barroso defeated Darren Stewart. Again, unanimous decision. This was a light heavyweight sort of fight. Again, has a similar sort of principle to the heavyweights, in the sense where if it's not always done, depending on who it is, if it's not always done within the first 2 rounds or so, it can long out, especially when there are sort of wrestling sort of fighters, jiu-jitsu fighters. It was a decision. Then we had in the final prelim of the prelim card, we had Joseph Duffy defeating Reza Madadi. Now Joseph Duffy won by unanimous decision, 30-27. So all 3 judges gave it to Joseph Duffy. But this was seriously it was an incredible performance. Since Joseph Duffy he's been at TriStar training with Firas Zahabi with Georges St. Pierre's home gym in Montreal. He looks phenomenal. Obviously, remember, this is the same guy who actually gave Conor McGregor his defeat before he came to the UFC. But this was one of the best performances I've seen him had. It's obviously that he going to TriStar, he's helped there was a lot of TriStar sort of esque things where the roll from body locks he rolled into these sort of ankle locks and heel hooks. So very TriStar sort of jiu-jitsu style things going on, and his boxing was just phenomenal. I'm not sure if maybe in the future they may try and rearrange a Conor McGregor this is a long shot, but try and rearrange a Conor McGregor rematch to try and avenge his loss before the UFC. I mean, Duffy is, I think he's 29 or something, so he's only maybe a year or two older than McGregor, despite he looks a little bit older. Right, onto the main card. We had Arnold Allen defeating Makwan Amirkhani. This was quite an odd sort of fight. It was really back and forth, but not in the sense of striking. It was back and forward in the sense of it was so scrambly. It was when it was these two young sort of people, just with almost bundles of unlimited energy. They were both just kind of, anytime there was a takedown or something similar to that happening, the other one would just scramble up and just use all he could to get up, and it was kind of just that happened a lot. It was a relatively technical sort of fight in the way it was. It was a lot of technique was used for these scrambles, but it also was a very taxing sort of fight. Both fighters they were determined to not be stuck in the same sort of position throughout the fight. So it went back and forth, but in the end, Arnold Allen put on almost a better display. He outboxed a bit. His takedowns and things were a bit better. Towards the end, it became a little bit better, more clearer to Arnold Allen. He won by a split decision. This was relatively odd decision, I thought. Two judges actually gave it 30-27 to Arnold Allen, so giving him 3 rounds to nothing to Amirkhani. And then one judge actually gave it 28-29 to Amirkhani, so gave 1 round to Arnold Allen and 2 rounds to Amirkhani. So I'm not sure how they saw that, but it doesn't matter. Arnold Allen won in the end. Next up, Marlon Vera versus Brad Pickett. Now this was this was not one of the best parts of the night. Marlon Vera defeated Brad Pickett. It was quite an interesting one, because on the judges' scorecards, Brad Pickett was actually winning going into the 3rd round. To spoil it now, in case you don't know, Brad Pickett lost by TKO in the 3rd round. Brad Pickett was winning actually 2-0 on the judges' scorecard. So had he managed to avoid this, well, it was a head kick actually. Had he managed to avoid this, which happened I think 3 minutes 50 into their 3rd round, he would have actually won. Well, yeah, he would have won because he was leading on the scorecards. So it was quite an interesting one, the way Vera was doing it. He was doing a lot of knees, entering with knees and a lot of body kicks. Now these body kicks, the way it works with MMA is you're almost trying to program your opponent. So Marlon Vera is landing these body kicks almost every single time, and what it's doing is making Brad Pickett think, because each time it lands, it obviously hurts. You may not see these fighters show that much grimace on their face, but these kicks really do hurt, especially when they're coming at you, or if it's on the right hand side, your liver side. So he's doing this almost throughout the whole fight, leading up to this final point in the 3rd round, where he kind of it looked like it was a body kick, and where Brad Pickett now is almost so condensed. His mindset is pretty much just it's going to be a body kick. He almost brings his hand down slightly, and it just leaves the head open. So Marlon Vera just basically kind of swept him off his feet with the head kick. It was almost quite clean, I think, and then he hit some good shots on the ground. I think it was a good stoppage. Brad Pickett did protest it, but I do think it was a good stoppage. So now, like I said, Pickett was actually winning throughout the fight, arguably. He was landing some relatively good shots. He was kind of just looking for the KO pretty much the whole time. But he was getting takedowns. It was almost half the round was Vera's, then half the round would be Pickett's, where he would kind of just take him down, do some ground and pound, some really nice ground and pound, some good jiu-jitsu. But yeah, again, it did end with the TKO to Marlon Vera. Now the ending was actually incredibly emotional. Brad Pickett was actually crying, Bruce Buffer offering his condolences. Bruce Buffer doesn't normally do what he did. Dan Hardy handled the post-fight interview incredibly well for someone who actually lost. So he did. It was really quite an emotional thing. He was crying, and he left his signature sort of hat in the octagon. So now the co-main event, we had Gunnar Nelson defeating Alan Jouban in the 2nd round. So now this was almost again a little bit back and forward. First things first, just to note, Gunnar Nelson is such a cool character. I don't think this guy feels almost anything. It's quite weird. He has that almost McGregor thing. Maybe it's just where they're both from Straight Blast Gym in Ireland, training with John Kavanagh. they kind of have that very cool sort of thing, no stress or anything. So now in round 1, Jouban's coming out. He landed some good leg kicks. Nelson is constantly trying to back him up to the cage. I think it may have been a game plan. He's just trying to push him back almost each time. So now this, with Jouban, when he fought Mike Perry in the previous fight, he handled it quite well, because Mike Perry is a very predictable sort of guy. He's just going to come in and go for this huge knockout. So his game plan was handled quite well. He could just come in and defend against this, keep him away, kicks away. Whereas Gunnar Nelson is not a similar sort of guy in the sense he has got big hands and can hit hard, but he's not going to just be looking for that one punch knockout every time. He's a very technical sort of guy. So now Gunnar Nelson was almost backing him up to the cage the whole time. It was almost a game plan, and it went eventually when he could penetrate the open space, the war zone area, and he saw an opportunity. He would grind Jouban up against the fence, or he would just then go for a takedown, which kind of just this is how that first round was ending. He went for a takedown, and as I said, Gunnar Nelson is a phenomenal. I mentioned in the previous video he lost to Damian Maia. They had pretty much a jiu-jitsu battle, but Gunnar Nelson has some of the best jiu-jitsu in MMA. He's a black belt by Renzo Gracie. So now if you don't know who Renzo Gracie is, well, I advise you to go check him out. I'll put the name up on a little caption on the screen. Renzo Gracie is well, I don't know, he's maybe the best current teacher of jiu-jitsu. Check him out if you don't know who he is. So Gunnar Nelson's jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. He takes Jouban down, and the way he just slides into mounted position, it was almost like he was cutting through butter. It was so effortless and seamless, something that is genuinely quite hard. He just slides his knee over the belly, and then he proceeds to do some ground and pound. This obviously shows how ridiculously good Damian Maia's jiu-jitsu is to relatively easily, not easily, it was quite good, but he kind of nullified Gunnar Nelson's. So now second round, the start of the second round, Jouban's corner is telling him that he needs to take the centre of the cage to stop being pushed up against the fence. It's a relatively common tactic if someone is getting pushed up against the fence. And then Nelson, they kind of scrap a little bit, and Nelson shows his Conor McGregor straight blast gym sort of thing. He lands a clean straight right to him, to his head. He gets a head kick in, and then it kind of once it's gone down to the ground, then he gets a submission in relatively easily. To be honest, Jouban wasn't really in it after that point, so that ended that fight submission by submission. And now moving on to the final and main event, Jimi Manuwa versus Corey Anderson. First things first, Jimi Manuwa instantly took the centre of the cage. He wanted to assert his dominance, and he backed Anderson up in a similar style to what he did to Ovin St. Preux. I'll put the name in a caption in case you don't know how. He's basically just looking and waiting for a really good shot. Very early on, he landed a really good left to the body, which he loves. He loves this lead left hook to the body, and he's very conservative with his shots. He's always just looking for this one sort of shot. He's quite one-dimensional in a sense, but he's very good at it. He's a master of the trade. So now, and Corey Anderson does a lot. If you don't know who Frankie Edgar is, I'll put the name in a caption again. He trains with a similar sort of person as Mark Henry, and they both train on the same person, under the same person. So they have a very similar style of movement. They're moving around a lot, trying to get feints, trying to make the other person kind of faint into what they're doing. So eventually, Manuwa, he's moving him to the fence. He kind of circles Anderson left into this lead hook, which he loves. And obviously in a previous game plan, they must have seen that Manuwa loves this lead left hook, and he obviously landed one relatively early on. So what this kind of means is that now Anderson is he's programmed to think this left hook, like I mentioned earlier with Brad Pickett in the kick. So he almost drops his hand a little bit, and Manuwa just basically cleanly lands left hook to the head and just knocks him out. It was a walk-off knockout. And it was so easy. The way he did it, he has so much power. It was almost effortless. It was just so easy how he did it. And that basically ended that. Jimi Manuwa with KO of the night, Gunnar Nelson with submission of the night, and Mark Giacchesi with probably performance of the night. That was incredible. I'll put a link in below for Mark Giacchesi. That was unbelievable. Jimi Manuwa, he called out David Haye oddly. He wants a boxing fight, and he said he doesn't like John Jones because he takes steroids. So fair enough. I don't know if he'll fight Gustafsson because they do train together, but maybe a fight with Mauricio Shogun Hua. Right guys, that almost ends my small little breakdown. If you enjoyed it, please do like, share and subscribe. If you want to see more, then let me know. Thank you very much for watching. As always, LordKing out.